Have you ever heard the sound of a timeline snapping? It doesn't sound like glass breaking. It doesn't sound like a scream. It sounds like absolute silence. The kind of silence that bleeds. My name is Nova, and I am the sunset of this family. Let me take you back to the moment the sun went out. May 14th, my graduation from the doctoral program in cognitive trauma. I stood on the stage, a speck of black in a sea of crimson. The lights were blinding, burning my retinas. 2,000 people were clapping, a rhythmic, wet sound like heavy rain. But my eyes were locked on 3 specific chairs in the front row. The VIP section, reserved for the family of a valedictorian. Chair 1, empty. Chair 2, empty. Chair 3, empty. A single white rose lay on the seat where my mother should have been. It sat there like a gravestone. I smiled for the cameras. I shook the dean's hand. I accepted the paper that proved I knew how to dismantle a human psyche. But as I walked off that stage, the static started. A low, vibrating hum in my teeth. My phone buzzed against my ribs. One single notification. I thought, maybe they crashed. Maybe they are dead. Maybe for once it's not him. I pulled it out. The screen glowed blue in the dim hallway. It wasn't a text. It was a banking alert. Transfer confirmed. Negative $52,000. Recipient, Caleb Vance Legal Defense Fund. $52,000. My research grant. The money meant to map the architecture of fear. Gone. Vaporized. Then, a message from Mom followed. Not a voice, just pixels. Don't make a scene. Caleb hurt someone again. We needed the cash to pay the settlement. You're the strong one, Nova. You can earn more. He can't survive prison. Be a good sister. Be a good sister. I stood there, clutching my diploma, surrounded by the smell of cheap champagne and other people's joy. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. Instead, I felt a chemical shift in my brain. Dopamine, no. Adrenaline, no. Clarity, they wanted me to be a good sister? Fine. I decided right there, staring at the exit sign, that I would be the last sister they ever saw. I decided to initiate a new protocol, not revenge, erasure. To understand why I initiated the erasure protocol, you have to understand the pathology of the Vance family. In biology, there is a specific relationship called parasitism. One organism feeds, the other withers. It is not malice. It is simply survival of the hungriest. I wasn't born a daughter. I was born a utility, a spare battery, a safety net woven out of straight A's, skipped parties, and obedient silence. And then there was Caleb. Caleb, my older brother, the golden child with the rotten core. Caleb didn't have to be smart. He didn't have to be kind. He just had to be. He had that dangerous magnetic charm that made people forgive him for shattering their lives. He was the sun, and the rest of us were just debris caught in his gravity. When we were kids, if Caleb broke a neighbor's window, I was the one handed the broom. If Caleb failed a math test, I was the one grounded for not tutoring him well enough. My mother, Linda, called it loyalty. My father, Thomas, called it family duty. I called it what it was, cannibalism. They consumed my achievements to fuel his failures. My scholarships paid for his bail money. My part-time jobs paid for his totaled cars. By the time I was 26, I had published 3 papers. I was fast-tracked for the most prestigious grant in the country, the Neuroarchitecture Grant. $52,000 to study how the brain processes deep-seated trauma. The irony is not lost on me. I remember the dinner 2 weeks before graduation. It was the only time we sat together that entire year. The restaurant was loud, smelling of burnt steak and cheap cologne. Caleb was already 3 drinks deep, laughing about a fender bender he'd fled the scene of earlier that morning. Don't worry, Dad said, slapping Caleb's back, his eyes glassy with adoration. We'll handle it, son. We always do. I sat there, gripping my water glass until my knuckles turned white. I looked at my mother. I needed to establish a boundary. Mom, I said, my voice cutting through Caleb's laughter. The grant money lands in the old joint account on Monday. I haven't had time to switch banks because of the thesis defense. I'm moving it to my personal savings immediately. Do not touch it. It is for the lab equipment. It is my career. She looked at me with those soft, wet eyes she used to manipulate neighbors and church elders. Nova, honey, she sighed, reaching across the table. Her skin felt dry, like paper. You're so dramatic. Why would we touch your science money? We have plenty. She squeezed my hand. We are so proud of you, she said. I believed her. That was my fatal error. I assumed that because I was playing by the rules of logic and love, they were too. I assumed that pride meant they respected me, but pride, to them, was just ownership. I was a prize horse. Caleb was the jockey who kept falling off, and when the jockey gets hurt, you sell the horse to pay the medical bills. The text message I received on graduation day about the settlement clarified everything. Caleb hadn't just gotten into trouble. He had hurt someone, badly. A bar fight? A hit and run. They didn't say. They just needed 52 grand to make the problem go away before the court date. They didn't ask me. They didn't call me. They used the access I trusted them with, the account I opened when I was 18, and they drained me dry. Standing in that hallway, looking at the empty auditorium, I realized something. They didn't skip my graduation because they were busy. They didn't skip it because they were tired. They skipped it because they couldn't look me in the eye after robbing me. Or maybe it was worse. Maybe they didn't feel any guilt at all. Maybe they thought my graduation was just another transaction. I earned the money. They spent the money. The system works. I looked at my reflection in the trophy case glass. The girl staring back wasn't Nova the daughter. She was Nova the scientist, and she was looking at a malignant tumor that needed to be excised. I wasn't going to sue them. Lawsuits take years. I wasn't going to yell at them. Yelling is for people who want to be heard. I didn't want to be heard anymore. I wanted to be felt. I walked out of the university and threw my cap into the trash. I didn't go back to my apartment. I went to the lab. I had access to things most people don't. Chemical compounds, digital backdoors, and most importantly, I knew everything about my family, their passwords, their fears, their secrets. I sat down at my terminal. The green cursor blinked against the black screen. Subject, the Vance family. Status, terminal. Treatment, total system reset. I cracked my knuckles. It was time to go to work. For 21 days, I became a ghost. I didn't answer their calls. I didn't reply to their texts. I just listened to the voicemails they left. I collected them like data points in a longitudinal study of narcissism. Voicemail 1, Mom. Day 2, Nova, pick up. You're being childish. It's just money. We can pay you back eventually. Caleb is family. You don't abandon fam over a bank transfer. Voicemail 2, Dad. Day 5. This is ridiculous. You're acting like we stole from you. We borrowed it. Stop punishing your mother. She's sick with worry. Voicemail 3. Caleb, day 12. Yo, sis. Thanks for the save. I knew you had my back. Don't be a stranger, all right? Let's get a drink. I'm buying. Well, with your money, I guess. Haha, he knew I had his back. He didn't know I was aiming for the spine. I spent those 3 weeks in the university lab, sleeping on a cot next to the centrifuge. I wasn't sulking. I was building. I used my access to the university's behavioral psychology database to run a background diagnostic on my own kin. I pulled their files, not their medical records, their digital souls, passwords, GPS history, cloud backups. The data was illuminating. I found out where Caleb was hiding a motel off Route 9. I found out Mom was secretly browsing foreclosure listings. The house was in debt too. Interesting. And I found the smoking one day. One day we worked. And then I had a video file dated the night of the incident, a dash cam recording. It wasn't just a fender bender. He had hit a cyclist, and then he had driven away. They paid the victim off with my grant money to keep it out of court. They bought silence. I didn't use this info to expose them immediately. Exposure is messy. Exposure allows for apologies and plea deals. I wanted containment. On the 22nd day, I picked up the phone. I stood in front of the mirror in the lab restroom. I relaxed my jaw. I widened my eyes. I engaged the good daughter protocol. I dialed Mom. Hello? Her voice was sharp, defensive. Hi, Mom, I said. My voice was smooth, like honey laced with arsenic. Nova? Finally. Where have you been? Do you know how worried? I know, I interrupted, soft and gentle. I'm sorry, Mom. I needed time to process, but I realized you were right. Silence on the other end. The hook was in the water. I was? She asked, skeptical but hopeful. Yes. Family comes first. Caleb needed help. I was selfish to think my research was more important than his freedom. I'm ready to come home. I could hear her exhale, a long, rattling breath. The tension snapped. Oh, honey, she gushed. I knew you'd understand. I told your father. Nova's smart. She'll see the big picture. I do see the big picture now, I said. And I want to make it up to you. I want to host a dinner, a late graduation celebration. Just us. No outsiders. That sounds lovely, she said. We can do it at the house on Sunday. No, I said. Not the house. I want to treat you. I rented a place, a private architectural home up in the hills, the glass house. It's isolated, beautiful. I want us to reconnect without distractions. The glass house? She sounded impressed. Is it expensive? Don't worry about the cost. I lied. I got a signing bonus from a new lab position. I want to share it with you. Another lie. There was no bonus. There was no new lab. There was only the trap. Okay, she said, greed seeping into her voice. Sunday at 7? Caleb will be so happy you're not mad. I'm not mad, Mom, I whispered, watching a spider weave a web in the corner of the ceiling. I'm something else entirely. What was that? I said. I can't wait to see everyone. I hung up. The glass house wasn't a rental. It was a decommissioned observation facility owned by the university's psychology department, soundproof walls, electronic locks controlled by a central server, mirrored windows that let you see out but no one could see in. It was designed to study stress responses in extreme isolation. I packed my bag, not clothes, a jammer to block cell signals, a projector, and a flash drive containing every lie they had ever told. They thought they were coming to a celebration. They didn't know they were walking into a vivisection. I looked at the white rose I had kept from the graduation ceremony. It was brown and dead now. I crushed it in my hand, letting the dry petals fall like ash. Sunday, I said to the empty room, we feast. The glass house sat on the edge of a cliff, overlooking a valley of black pine. Does not do what you like to do. I arranged the table with surgical precision. White plates, silver cutlery aligned to the millimeter. No flowers. Flowers imply life. This was a sterile field. At 7:05 p.m., their car crunched up the gravel driveway. They walked in like they owned the place. Mom wore a dress that was too bright, a desperate shade of coral. Dad was already loosening his tie, scanning the room for the liquor cabinet. And Caleb looked bored. He was texting, his thumbs flying across the screen, probably telling his friends he was stuck at a boring family thing. Wow, Mom said, her voice echoing off the glass walls. Nova, this is modern. It's breathtaking. I said, pouring wine into 4 glasses. I wanted you to see everything clearly tonight. They sat down. They didn't ask how I was. They didn't ask about the PhD program or the thesis I had spent 4 years writing. So, Dad grunted, taking a heavy sip of the Cabernet. This signing bonus, how much are we talking? Enough to help with the mortgage? The rates are killing us. And I need a new car, Caleb interrupted, mouthful of bread. The settlement took my license, but I can still drive if I'm careful. I need something low-key, maybe a Tesla. I stood at the head of the table. I watched them eat. They devoured the food like locusts. They didn't taste it. They just consumed it. We can discuss the allocation of resources, I said, my voice flat, after the toast. You're always so formal, Mom laughed, waving her fork. Just relax, honey. You're home now. You're back where you belong. where I belong. I looked at the reflection in the window. The sun had set. Outside, there was nothing but void. Inside, the reflection showed 3 people eating and 1 person watching. I reached into my pocket and touched the remote control for the facility's central server. I have a surprise, I said. A presentation to honor the family legacy. Caleb rolled his eyes. Oh God, not a slideshow. Is this going to be baby pictures? Not exactly, I said. I pressed the first button on the remote. Click. The electronic locks on the front door engaged. It wasn't a loud sound, just a heavy, magnetic thud that vibrated through the floorboards. Gad paused, glass halfway to his mouth. What was that? Security? I said calmly. This house is fully automated. It seals itself at night for protection. The lights in the room dimmed, leaving only the cold blue glow of the hidden LED strips along the floor. The projector descended from the ceiling with a mechanical whir. Nova, what is this? Mom asked, her smile faltering. It's getting a little dark. Darkness is necessary for the projection, I replied, and I want you to focus. No distractions. I pressed the third button. The signal jammer activated. Caleb frowned at his phone. What the hell? I just lost service. My bars are gone. Mine too, Dad said, tapping his screen. Nova, what's up with the Wi-Fi? We don't need the outside world tonight. I walked slowly to the other end of the table, standing in front of the blank projection screen. My shadow stretched long and thin across the glass, looming over them like a specter. Tonight, I whispered, we are going to examine the data. The air in the room changed. The temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. The parasitism was over. The dissection was about to begin. The projector hummed, a sharp beam of white light cutting through the darkness. It hit the screen and displayed a single word, in bold, black font. Phatology. Nova, stop this, Dad growled, pushing his chair back. It made a screeching sound against the glass floor. Unlock the doors. The joke is over. Sit down, Subject 1, I said. My voice wasn't loud, but it was amplified by the room's acoustics. It hit them from every angle, vibrating in their chests. Dad froze. He looked at the door, then at me. He sat down slowly. Thank you. I clicked the remote. Slide 1, the transaction. A blown-up screenshot of the unauthorized transfer, $52,000. Next to it, a timestamped text from Caleb to his dealer. Don't worry, bro. My sister is a cash cow. I'll have the money by Monday. Caleb choked on his wine. You hacked my phone? I analyzed available data streams. I corrected. Hypothesis. The Vance family unit functions as a parasitic organism. It consumes the host until the host is non-viable. We are not parasites, Mom shrieked, clutching her pearls. We raised you. We gave you life. You gave me debt. I clicked again. Slide 2, the foreclosure. A document showing the family home was 3 months behind on payments. Next to it, a luxury car lease agreement for a Porsche, signed by Thomas Vance. Dated 2 days after they stole my grant money. You told me the money was for a legal settlement, I said, tilting my head. But the data suggests you bought a sports car to impress your golf buddies, Dad. Dad turned purple, the veins in his neck bulging. I needed to project success. It's for business. You don't understand the real world, Nova. I understand cause and effect, I said. And here is the effect. I clicked the remote one more time. The screen went black. Then a loading bar appeared. System purge, 100% complete. What does that mean? Caleb asked, his voice trembling. He stood up and banged his fist against the glass wall. My phone still says no service. What did you do? While you were eating the risotto, I said, checking my watch. I initiated a sequence of automated protocols. I walked toward them. They shrank back in their chairs. Protocol A, financial sterilization. I didn't just report the theft. I flagged every account linked to my social security number as fraudulent. Since you used my identity to co-sign your loans, the bank has now frozen all assets pending a federal investigation. You froze our money? Mom whispered, horror dawning on her face. No, I smiled. I froze my money. You just happened to be holding it. Protocol B. Protocol B. Identity correction. I continued. Caleb, remember that settlement you needed to pay? I forwarded the unedited dashcam footage of your hit and run to the district attorney. It was in your iCloud backup. They issued a warrant for your arrest 20 minutes ago. Caleb's face went white. He looked like he was going to vomit on the expensive table runner. And Protocol C, I pointed to the screen. A live feed appeared. It showed the driveway of the glass house, darkness, pine trees, and then, in the distance, the silent, flashing blue lights of 3 patrol cars winding up the mountain road. The authorities are not coming to save you, I said softly. I told them I was being held hostage by 3 intruders who had stolen my identity. I told them you were armed and unstable. You're insane, Dad screamed, lunging across the table. He grabbed a steak knife. You called the cops on your own family. I don't see a family, I said, watching the blue lights get closer. I see a tumor, and I am the scalpel. Dad froze, the knife shaking in his hand. He looked at the locked door. He looked at the flashing lights outside. Nova, Mom sobbed, falling to her knees. Please, stop this. We'll pay it back. We'll do anything. It's too late for variables, I said. The experiment has already concluded. I pressed the final button on the remote. The projector turned off. The floor lights turned off. Total, absolute darkness. Now, my voice echoed from everywhere and nowhere. Let's see who survives the void. Chaos is silent if you wear noise-canceling headphones. Inside the glass cube, the lights were dead. But the strobes from outside, the rhythmic flashing blue and red, sliced through the room like a disco for the damned. I could see them through the transparency. Dad was throwing a chair at the reinforced glass. It bounced off without a scratch. Mom was screaming, her mouth wide open, her face distorted into a mask of pure primal terror. Kayla was curled in the fetal position under the table, illuminated by the intermittent flashes of police cruisers. They looked like specimens in a jar, moths trapping themselves in a lantern. I wasn't inside with them anymore. While the darkness fell in Section 5, I had slipped out the service exit. I stood on the ridge, 50 yards away, hidden by the tree line. The night air was freezing. It smelled of pine needles and ozone. I watched the first sheriff's deputy approach the house, gun drawn. Inside the glass, Dad saw the cop. He waved his arms frantically. He thought it was rescue, but he didn't know what I had told the 911 dispatcher. I didn't tell them my family was there. I told them trespassers were there. Violent, armed squatters who had broken into the university research facility. Squatters who had been sending death threats to the faculty. And here is the beautiful, cruel, abstract twist. I pulled out my tablet. The screen glowed against my pale skin. Command, erase user log. In the blink of an eye, my digital footprint at the glass house vanished. My rental agreement deleted. My entry logs overwritten. My biometrics scrubbed from the server. To the police computer systems, I wasn't there. I had never been there. To the police, the people inside were strangers raving about a daughter named Nova who, according to the building's registry, did not exist. I watched the deputy shout orders through the megaphone. I couldn't hear him, but I saw Dad try to lunge for the door handle. The electronic lock was still engaged. Dad looked like a mime trapped in a box. He picked up the steak knife again, not to attack, but to try and pry the lock open. Bad move. The deputies saw a weapon. They breached, shattered the front lock with a ram. Dad turned, knife in hand, confused, blinded by the tactical lights. The deputy didn't hesitate. He deployed a taser. Dad convulsed, dropping like a sack of stones, shaking on the LED floor I had installed. Mom froze, hands up, sobbing into the strobe lights, pointing at the empty chair where I used to sit. She was screaming my name, but to the cops, she was screaming at a ghost. Caleb didn't move. He just stared at the ceiling, catatonic. It was a masterpiece of misunderstanding. My phone buzzed. A notification from the bank. Transfer complete. Assets liquidated. I didn't take the money back to keep it. That would be theft. I donated it, all of it, to a research fund for victims of familial narcissism. Technically, I was now penniless. I was homeless. I was a ghost. And I had never felt more alive. I turned my back on the glass house. The blue lights painted the trees in surreal, jerky movements, making the forest look like a glitching video file. I started walking into the forest, not toward the road, toward the dark. I could still feel the phantom vibration of the good daughter protocol dying in my mind. It hurt. It felt like amputation, but the rot was gone. Behind me, the sound of handcuffs clicking. Ahead of me, the void. I didn't run. Predators don't run. They stalk. And tonight, I was stalking a new life. The forest didn't end. It just got darker. I walked for 3 hours. Or maybe 3 years. Time is subjective when you don't have a calendar anymore. Eventually, I reached the highway. I tossed my phone into a ravine. It fell silent, taking the last connection to Nova Vance with it. You're probably wondering what happened to them. I checked the news from a library terminal 2 states away. A week later, family arrested in bizarre standoff at research facility. Suspects claim ghost daughter lured them there. Police confirm no record of Nova Vance exists in facility logs. They are currently being held for psychiatric evaluation. Dad is screaming about a projector. Mom is crying about a white rose. Caleb is silent, staring at the wall, waiting for a signal that will never come. They are trapped in a reality I built for them, a glass box of their own making. They will spend the rest of their lives trying to prove I exist, but I don't. Not anymore. I changed my name. I changed my hair. I changed the architecture of my own mind. I work in a small coffee shop now, in a town where it rains every day. I serve latte art to strangers. I smile. I am pleasant. I am the nice girl behind the counter. But sometimes, when the shop is empty and the refrigerator hums that low electric note, I hear it. The static. It's not in my ears. It's in my blood. I didn't just delete them, you see. I deleted the part of me that was human, the part that needed love, the part that felt pain. I am not a daughter. I am not a scientist. I am a glitch. Sometimes, I wonder if I'm even real. Maybe I died on that stage at graduation. Maybe this whole story, the glass house, the arrest, the forest, is just the firing of dying neurons in a starving brain. Does it matter? I look at the camera. I look at you. Do you have a Caleb in your life? Do you have a mother who loves her image more than she loves you? Listen closely. Can you hear the hum? Don't wait for them to change. Don't wait for an apology. Apologies are for people who exist. Be like me. Become the void. Nova smiles. It is a smile that doesn't reach her eyes. It looks painted on. The video begins to degrade. Pixelation. Audio distortion. My name was Nova, and I am